Alright, I thought I'd do a quick video on this custom guitar I've been working on for a while now. I started it in mid-May or so, and it's now, I think, July 2nd. Just a quick video on this. A little bit of background. This was like a $50 Amazon guitar. I think my brother got it. And it was a very cheap, body, neck. All the hardware was very cheap because it was just a cheap guitar, just kind of a beginner thing. Um, but it was okay. And I think it originally came in this kind of, it was a hot rod red actually. It came in hot rod red. Um, and at one point he gave it to me to kind of do some work on and refinish. So I thought I could do an okay job on it, but that was a few years ago and I wasn't as experienced, I guess, as I am now in refinishing guitars. I didn't really do my research, so I refinished it in another shade of hot rod red actually, very similar. But it just looked pretty bad. The finish was not great. Um, I did a lot wrong on that project. It was very blotchy and everything. I stripped it back down at some point and disassembled it and left it in my basement. I used the neck for another guitar project for a while that I wasn't a huge fan of. It was kind of one of those experimental, cigar box guitars. Didn't turn out very well either. So that's kind of some background on the hardware, or on the just the general, story of the guitar, I guess. And then I recently, in May, decided to strip it all down. So I sanded it as best I could, and I didn't do a great job, and some of that shows under the paint. But I sanded it down, and I bought just like Rust-Oleum from Home Depot, Rust-Oleum spray paint. A few different colors. I got white, so the undercoat for everything, just kind of almost like a primer, is all white. And then I bought like kind of a very light blue, almost white, like eggshell blue maybe is a good word for it. And I went around the edges to get this sunburst effect, and you can see it better on the back. So actually dead center where this plate is now would be the pure white, and then there's kind of this eggshell blue, and then I can just go into this like deeper blue. I like this color a lot, matches my other bass uh, and my pickup truck, as well as the walls to my room actually. Just a big fan of this shade of blue, I guess. Um, so that was that. I did the same thing for the headstock, and I think it looks pretty good. And then you can tell how glossy it is just from the reflections in the video. And I'm sorry the lighting isn't too great. Can't tell exactly how spot on the colors are, but that's okay. But yeah, you can tell I did quite a few coats of gloss as well. I don't think I did enough, either that or I didn't sand under enough, because there's some spots that are a little bumpy and a little rough still. So I could have done a better job with probably sanding it, is what that is. But I did a decent amount of gloss to kind of fill that out. Glossing and sanding and glossing and sanding is what you're supposed to do. So I did a lot of that, a lot of wet sanding at like 1,000, 1,200 grit. So that's been a process. I hate sanding, so I really just had to be patient, work through it, I guess. As far as hardware goes, I'll come up a little bit closer on here. Some of these parts are from Guitar Center because I'm too lazy to wait for shipping. Some of them came from StewMac, and some of them came from Sweetwater. Um, so on here, I've got a Proline Stratocaster bridge, pretty cheap from Guitar Center. Other thing from Guitar Center is the nut right here. That's just like a graphite nut, I think is what he said. And the graphite means that it's self-lubricating, so the strings will actually, as they wear down, they'll actually slide better through the nut. So that helps with just kind of tuning stability. Speaking of tuning stability, I've got these Fender American locking tuners. Big fan of these locking tuners. I actually didn't know they were a thing until I started looking for tuners. And you just feed the string through and then lock the screw on the back. You don't have to worry about winding it or anything. It all just goes. String trees came from the stock guitar. That's where those came from. I didn't really care about those till actually I think those were the most recent thing I installed on it. Because I realized I was getting this kind of buzzy noise from the headstock. I forgot to mount one of those string trees. Oh well. Anyways, down here I've got just kind of the jack plate was standard with the guitar, came stock. The pick guard was stock with the guitar, except that there was a single coil in this spot. So I actually had to borrow a friend's Dremel. Shout out to Stuart Holden. I had to borrow his Dremel to route out the cavity for the humbucker style pickup. And you can see I didn't do a spectacular job, but it is what it is. And there's still screw holes from the original the stock pickup that was in there. That's okay. On the back, this is stock. This is stock. The strap hooks or whatever, strap locking, whatever, they're all stock, and they're fine. I'm not super picky about super nice hardware, especially when it comes to these, because I don't use a strap too often when I'm playing. Anywho, the internals, I've got the, this is the stock switch, and it works fine. It's a little poppy when you switch, but it's really not that bad. So I think it works good. I love the feel of these switches. Then I've got the CTS pots. These are great. I've always liked CTS and their pots. This is a push-pull pot. I'll show you what that does in a minute, but I got 2 tones and a volume. Just got some, like, I got those from StewMac. I also have a 0.47 microfarad capacitor on each of the tone knobs. I'll talk about that in a bit. Switchcraft output jack. I like Switchcraft on a lot of their stuff. I find they almost make them too small, so once it's in there, it's not coming out unless you really want it to. So I actually kind of like that. I've seen that with their XLR cables too. It's, you know, you pull on it, it's not going to come out, which is, I think, a good thing. Is that it, I think, until I get to the pickups? Yeah. So pickups, this is the Seymour Duncan Pearly Gates. I can't remember what magnet I have in there right now, but I really like the way it sounds, and you'll be able to hear it either now or I might post a second video. I think I'll post a second video. This will just be a rundown of the guitar. Just decided that. This is the Seymour Duncan Pearly Gates. My friend Daniel Collins from Birmingham gave this to me. So shout out to him and shout out to Nate too. Hey Nate, what's up? Nate and Dan have both been pretty big inspiration on this project actually. They both have custom built guitars. And we connected pretty well over our love of guitars and music, especially working on custom guitars, and weird things to do with, you know, wiring and setting up guitars. So shout out to you guys, been an inspiration and a huge help throughout the course of this project. So Pearly Gates, Seymour Duncan, humbucker. Originally I was going to buy some Seymour Duncan just single coil pickups. But I found a pretty good deal for this brand called Dragonfire Audio. Dragonfire makes a lot of different guitar parts. I think they come from China, which for the record I don't really have an issue with actually, as long as it sounds good. So no complaints there. But Dragonfire Audio, I got these used. They are hot rails, so they're actually humbucker pickups in a single coil size. And I don't know how well you can tell, but instead of the 6, instead of the 6 screws and the 6 slugs, you actually just have 2 rails, which is why they're called hot rails. And they really are hot. You'll be able to hear that in the next video. Just that it's loud, and it comes through really well. So that is kind of the layout of the guitar. I will give you a demo of what it sounds like, just with a clean tone, maybe throw some reverb on there, in a second video here. So I think that's everything. I'm trying to think if I missed anything. Anyways, yeah, thanks to Nate and Dan Collins for the pickup. Stuart Holden lent me his Dremel. Tim Havens lent me a drill bit. Anybody else lend me anything? No, I think that's it. Fun story if you're still here about this this head. I actually went through several sets of tuning pegs before I found ones that fit. So the original pair I bought from Guitar Center, the diameter of the heads was too thin. So I put them through the holes and they just rattle around, and I couldn't get the nuts tight on there. So that's too bad. Got a refund for those from Guitar Center. I'm not a huge fan of Guitar Center as is, but I gotta admit they're really friendly about that stuff. So quick, easy refund. I think same day cash. It was really easy. So shout out to Guitar Center, I guess, begrudgingly. But these I ordered from Sweetwater, and they came through, and I forgot to measure my neck. So it turns out that the thickness of the neck, right there, was just a little too thick for the top, or for the holes of the tuning heads to come through. I don't know how well you can see that, honestly, but the holes on the tuning heads were not coming through, so I couldn't feed the strings through. So what I ended up doing, and you can actually kind of tell there, the wood's a little bit different color back here. Super smooth. I sanded it down to 1200 grit, but I had to sand off a significant amount with my power sander, um, because I couldn't get these to fit originally. So yeah, that's the fun story, pretty much actually. Just had to sand a lot off the back of the head, and it actually looks fine. I think it was a little thick to begin with. Now it's a little bit more normal. Probably in spec. Well, it is definitely in spec to a Fender Stratocaster, just because the heads fit. That's how I know that, I guess. Um, don't have much else to say. If you're still watching here, I think I'm at 10 minutes, so I'm kind of impressed. Respect to you for still watching. Uh, I'll be playing it and showing off the sounds in the next video, I guess.